Okay, coming up next, we have Mike Swart and Phil Allen from ICN, who will be talking to us about driving growth through local content and sustainability. Please welcome Mike and Phil.
My name is Mike Swart. I'm the National Strategy Director for ICN, reporting into the National Office in Canberra. ICN stands for Industry Capability Network. And a bit about us before we go into the nuts and bolts. ICN's been around for about 40-odd years, and obviously as part of that process, we've certainly established a pretty robust framework to be able to support local industry through our trusted network. And our driver is to drive economic growth, and we do that every day through our people on the ground as well as our systems and processes. The objective today is to kind of share our story with you and not preach to you. So, and I've heard that a number of times. So really at the end of the day, we're just sharing what we do, and hopefully it will resonate with the audience. These are a couple of outputs that we have achieved over the last 40 years. $53.8 billion worth of value of contracts have been awarded to local suppliers as a result of our work. Contracts awarded over 1,222 projects, as well as work packages, which are collectively opportunities within major projects to the tune of about 38,000. As well as value of all published projects over $1.6 trillion. So at any given time, we've got between $250 to $400 billion worth of projects on our portal. And we've got about 100,000 odd suppliers, and that includes New Zealand suppliers as well. So in terms of our solution and what we offer, obviously, we've been on the journey of transformation. I'll talk a bit more about that. And I've got my colleague, Phil Allen, who's our Chief Technology Officer. We call him the MNWC, the main man, what counts, because without him, we wouldn't function. So in essence, our sort of world is made up of two different elements. Obviously, we've got our platforms that allow us to be able to drive value to our stakeholders. And then we've obviously got our people. That is that interactive component that we cannot do without. And we are jostling with the idea of AI. Phil loves AI. I say that loosely because there's a broad context to what AI is all about. So it's great to hear all the various different speakers that are talking about it and what that involves. But obviously, part of our solution is it's modular. So we are able to tailor our solution according to our clients. And that includes both federal and state governments, includes major projects, and includes our suppliers and various other industry bodies that work with us. Our portals make us aware of opportunities. So typically, suppliers would get a notification when there is an opportunity that comes on. It enables them to bid for work and also to bid for tenders, and can also help our stakeholders track a contract through the delivery process. Obviously, flagging if there are inconsistencies in terms of commitments that have been made as part of their original contract obligations, and obviously then calibrating it to be fit for purpose. Providing valuable data insights, which is something that we've only really started tapping in over the last 5 years. Probably the reason why Phil and I are standing here today, because it's been a journey that we've kind of been on for the last 40 years, but there was a light bulb moment for us to go, hang on one second, through the last 40 years, we've got an enormous amount of data that we can actually start analyzing and looking at how that benefits, and through insights and various other elements which we'll cover off. We can also assess sectoral gaps, which again is part of that data, being able to utilize that data for governments to be able to look at investment attraction, and also to look at where gaps are that cause a bit of a risk factor. And then highlighting investment opportunities through that process. And we also facilitate industry briefings, trainings, and workshops for suppliers in terms of capability upliftment. Phil made a comment to someone earlier on that it was great. He had inboard entertainment whilst we were flying over here, and he was talking about me. So I'll try and keep it very brief. But in essence, this is our ecosystem, right? So this is the journey that we've been on over the last 5 years. If you look at the second block, that's Gateway by ICN, which is our front-end platform. That's where we put up projects and we list opportunities, and suppliers actually engage, they register their companies on, and that was kind of what we did for a large amount of our existence. And then we kind of figured out, hang on one second, in terms of us remaining relevant, we needed to look at a broader end-to-end solution, and that's where our other products and services were born. Perspective by ICN is our capability mapping tool that maps supply chains, and critical in today's environment, particularly where you're looking at risk factors associated with importing and being able to have a sustainable supply chain working with your organization. Insight by ICN is our Power BI dashboards. Again, this is where we use data. We extrapolate the data and we do some smarts around the analytical component of that data, and we can really derive some great insights into what is happening from a sector perspective, from a demographic perspective, etc. You get the point. And then we've got Procure by ICN. That's our transactional portal. That was my baby, and we've now incorporated it into the mix of it. But in essence, that is once you've gone through the initial market testing or EOI process, you then go into the request for tender, request for quote process. More recently, we've also included a net zero facilitator. So we've actually got a climate team, and part of the process in Australia at the moment is that companies will actually need to start reporting from 1st of January 2025 in terms of their net zero initiatives and what they're doing in terms of their footprints. So we've got a team that actually works collectively with suppliers to bring them on that journey to net zero and help them through that transition, because there is a lot of grey areas that suppliers are still having to navigate through. And then finally, we're the gateway to the world. So we've actually realized that through this modular approach and the platforms that we've created, we're able to actually take that and put that into a new environment that is able to be used globally. So, in terms of ICN, the exemplar, as I mentioned, we've been around for 40-odd years. We celebrated this incredible milestone a couple of months back, and part of that process was a report that was created by Professor Roy Green and his colleague, Dr. Philip Toner. But as part of that process, what they did was they actually mapped the journey of ICN, and this is a quote that's actually incorporated into that report, which says, ICN meets real-world market needs by remediating fundamental problems in public and private sector procurement. It's part of that process that we actually help to bring solutions as far as procurement is concerned. As I mentioned before, part of our new horizon is looking at international markets. We have a number of conversations with international players at the moment. We also work very closely with Austrade, which is the equivalent of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise over here. And that is matching suppliers with opportunities in other countries. So I'll now hand over to Phil, and he talks a lot less than me. So Phil, over to you.
So old technology, I've got a microphone, and let's see how it works. So our mandate, 15 years ago, I joined ICN, and I was brought in to do some basic data conversions to bring all of our Australian states and some information from New Zealand into a single database. That was 15 years ago. It was a 6-week contract that I had, and I'm still here. So what we've done is we've brought all of our information together. We now have, as you can see on the slide, thousands of manufacturing companies within our database. We have, at the moment, 329 known manufacturers from New Zealand. As Mike suggested, our mandate is to keep the money local, to support Australian and New Zealand manufacturing and suppliers generally. So how do we do that? We've built systems over the last 15 years. We've gone through our own digital transformation, bringing all of our data in. We have two aspects to our business. We have the human aspect. We have consultants on the ground that support businesses and provide input into assisting you through your data transformation, and also providing input into supply chains, allowing you better access to business opportunities that are listed on our site. We're building networks. So we're building systems that you can register in, and we have associations local. We're working with the Bendigo Manufacturing or Regional Manufacturing Group to provide an association portal where all of the Bendigo regional manufacturers can come in and exchange opportunities. They can look for assistance in their business and start collaborating across businesses. So we're trying to level the issues that they have with staff turnover, the boom and bust, and so on. And we're building systems to try to level all of that out. As Mike suggested, we integrate with supply chains directly. So we get major projects listed within our site. We send out notifications. We do all of the matching and provide you with updates on future projects that may concern you and opportunities that you can get into. And we also provide local advocacy. As I said, we try to keep the business local. So within New Zealand, we'll support the local industries within the local locations and regions, then within the country, and then obviously in the Australia and New Zealand. And we also support that export capability as well. So with the export trade, as Mike suggested, we are global. So we have projects global, we advertise global, we've had delegations going over to Malaysia, the Philippines recently, and actually showcasing our systems so that we can advocate for Australia and New Zealand suppliers and try to win some work overseas as well. In our digital transformation space, one of the challenges that we've had is traditionally we've worked with taxonomies, and a lot of businesses will understand taxonomies in trying to determine what capabilities are available. We're getting away from that. We're trying to open it up using some of the AI magic that has been talked about today. We're trying to establish keyword-based taxonomies, so you can specify your capabilities in your industry with your own industry lexicon. We will then translate that into every other industry's lexicon. So when other industries are looking for a desk and you only manufacture tables, they'll find you. Okay, just because the terms are different, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't find you. So we're trying to open it up. And this is our challenge with digital transformation, because this is a really big challenge that AI is assisting us with. But as has been mentioned, AI is not a be-all and end-all. It takes a lot of training, so we're going through that process at the moment. The local government policy and advocation, we have a system called VMC. It's used to stand for the Victorian Management Centre. That system was developed by our Victorian office, and that provides all of the policy management for the Victorian government for the advocation of local social enterprise. And ICN manages that. We're getting into more of that in other states, and Mike will actually go further into how that may start affecting you in New Zealand, and how we're actually dealing with that across Australia.
Awesome, thanks, Phil. So as Phil mentioned, bringing it all together, thank you. We've got 5 minutes left and I'm just about finished. Bringing it all together, we've got 3 elements that we look at. The one is obviously environmental, social and governance principles. The second one is social license to operate, which in layman's terms is probably one of the most factors for any company to consider as part of their journey of growth and sustainability. And the third element is net zero initiatives, which I'm led to believe are as much of a focus point over here as they are in Australia. So the environmental, social and governance principles, we actually partner with a company called Green to View, who are our strategic partner over in Australia. And we work with companies to actually help them to understand their responsibilities as far as the ESG component is concerned. And that is quite a minefield where if you don't know what you're doing, but in layman's terms, we help them to navigate through that. The social license to operate is your responsibility as a business organization towards the local community and working with the local community, creating those jobs, etc., etc. And the net zero initiatives are, in essence, managed by our climate team, as I mentioned before. That's helping suppliers to navigate through the challenges of that. So we assist manufacturers with this compliance element, and that's guidance on climate conscious supply chains, as I mentioned before, advice on obligations tied to carbon reduction and ESG standards, and supporting with aligning business goals with community values. So in essence, it's everything that I've just spoken about. This is a great example of how it works well. So I actually spent 4 years in Gladstone, which is a little town in central Queensland. When I left the town, I didn't look back, and I haven't since, but that's another conversation entirely. But this is a boom and bust environment, and they struggled for decades to try and get this right. And finally, after the CSG LNG environment, which I was involved in, they cottoned on to the fact, hang on one second, we need to create a sustainable model. This is a slide from 2018-19, which showcases that industry's direct contributions and how that flows on to the benefits and what the actual full-time jobs are that have resulted as a result of those initiatives. Again, you can't make this up. And if we convert our 54 billion, that actually translates into 186,000 jobs that have been created as a result of the efforts. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is me and Phil. So just want to thank SoftLabs and LMAC for having us here today. Really appreciate it, and I'll probably talk to you guys during the course of the rest of the day. Thank you so much.